What is up, everybody? This is Double G. The reason you're hearing me, and this is not one of the normal shows that I do, is because it is October 1st. And with this network, the way the Patreon model works is really the time to get in is like the first week or two of the month. Because if you were to subscribe on like the last day of the month, you automatically just resubscribe the next day because it's the beginning of the month. So usually you like to put out some information about what's coming to the Patreon early in the month so people can, if they are interested, get in early, get all the content, and then you won't get charged too quickly thereafter. Usually I just write a post and put it on the website about what's coming new, but I figured, it probably makes a lot of sense to do this in podcast form. This will not be very long. It should be a quick listen. And for you who have been on the Patreon, are recurring subscribers, you probably only need to listen for a couple minutes, and I'll tell you when you can cut off, because then I'm going to do a hard sell for the new people who might be listening, because we put this up as a free show or a free update for anybody who wants to listen. So here's what we're doing. It's been kind of amazing because I think we've been doing this now for 10 months. Our very first Patreon show that went up was November 29th. So in a couple months, we're going to have a one-year anniversary. We'll have to figure out what to do for that date there. Wanted to just remind folks that this Sunday night, 10 p.m. Pacific, for you East Coasters, I am so sorry. It's really the time that John can do this. Me too, as well, because we both have families. He's got youngsters, so everyone needs to be sort of put to bed, and all the household duties need to be finished before we can record. So that's the reason for the time. But we're going to go live on our YouTube channel. You can find us at Fight Game Media. Just type that into the search bar in YouTube. We're going to go live for the first time. John and I have never done video live on this network. We've done it on Promise Thomas's Left My Wallet video podcast. But John and I are going to go live, and we're calling it Raw After Dark. We're going to have a little whiskey. We're going to be a little bit more chill. Yeah, we're pretty chill anyways. We have fun. But we're going to do it on video. We're going to cover the Bad Blood pay-per-view. If you've been following the 97 Raw, you know that we've been kind of... counting down is the wrong thing, but it's like we've been dreading this time because we knew, Brian Pillman is going to pass away very soon. In our rewatches, and this is the show, the announcement happens at Bad Blood. They announce it on the pre-show, and then just randomly Vince mentions it like before the first match. I don't know how many people were watching that pre-show, Vince. You probably should have did another more formal announcement on Bad Blood, but this is kind of, we're actually going to peak. The peak to 97 is obviously the Montreal Screwjob, so we'll do something for a live watch for Montreal 97, Montreal Screwjob in 1997. But this is kind of like the precursor to that. We wanted to try this out, so we're going to go live on YouTube. I know because of the time, not everybody will be able to join us, but those who can, I don't know what everyone's Sunday night is like. Monday morning is a little rough because we're sort of back at work. But if you're like me and John, and you kind of like use your Sunday night as like just the end of the weekend, you could get your mind right. You could get focused for Monday, and we like to do it by A, talking to each other, but B, having an adult beverage. So we'll have our whiskey, some bourbon. I think John is more of a Jack and Coke kind of guy. I'll probably have something similar, or just maybe sip some bourbon while we talk about this. But anyways, we're going to talk about Bad Blood, that whole show. And, I'll produce it a little bit as much as I can. There's going to be there's a component to the software that we use where we can share pictures, and hoping maybe even to get a little run in. We'll see about that. And then we're going to talk about the Raw the next night, which I haven't watched. I don't think I've ever watched that show ever. So this will be first time watch for me after I finish Bad Blood. So What is new coming to the Patreon? Those of you who have been subscribers for a little while know that there is a lot of content on the Patreon. And I understand, like, sometimes there's a little bit of anxiety to, like, get through stuff. Hopefully you have sort of figured out your own rhythm. You know, I really like Brace for Impact, but I'm not really following 97 Raw, so I'll skip those, and I'm not going to be too worried about, you know, if I remove it, am I getting my money's worth? You know, the Patreon is fairly inexpensive, so, you know, I hope that you don't think about it like that. You know, we give you guys a lot because we want you to be able to listen to whatever you want to listen to. And also, I would just want to put podcasters on. I want to put people who like doing this and put them on a platform that they can kind of create and start what they want to do. Maybe they'll take it to a different level. You know, maybe they'll go and do their own thing at something. But this is kind of like the beginning for them. So I just like content creators and putting content creators on. So anyway, here's what we're gonna do for October. The one hole in our roster of podcasts is that we do not have a weekly current WWE show. Now, some of you, and I know the demographics of this Patreon, some of you might think, well, of course you don't, because WWE is, you know, they're not what they once were. Now, I completely understand that they are still, by and large, the biggest game in town. I know AEW, if you're looking at TV ratings, if you're looking at live events, AEW is creating an avenue for themselves to really pick things up on WWE here. But WWE has 3 shows weekly that people pay attention to. Obviously, Raw on Monday, the gold standard until maybe for now, I don't know. NXT, which by and large the new NXT has been a little disappointing, and then SmackDown, which is still a really solid show. So the fact that WWE has these 3 shows with their 7 hours of TV, it's kind of intimidating. And if you just want to keep up with what's going on, if you only want to pay attention to the necessary things, that's what our new WWE show is going to be about. It's called, tentatively right now, we're not sure. This is kind of like a pencil, not pen thing with the name. Called it The Wrap, because the idea is we're going to come on the weekend, whether it be Saturday or Sunday, depending on if there's a pay-per-view, depending on what everyone's schedules are like. And we're going to go over the top 5 things that you need to know about WWE TV from that week. We're not going to break down Raw and tell everybody how terrible it was and how boring it was and how there's so many skippable segments. We're not going to go segment by segment. Like, there's so many people who do that. Wrestling Observer Radio, who I work with very closely, Brian and Dave do that. It's the most popular thing on their shows, and whenever they take like the YouTube segments and it's Brian and Dave, like those YouTube segments explode in viewership. But that's their gig. Like, that's what they've been doing. We don't need to reinvent that wheel or copy them or whatever. I wanted to do something because me, as a disenfranchised WWE viewer from time to time, I would say that, you know, for the most part, I'm okay with their shows. I'm not super excited. I'm also not super deflated either. But what do I want to listen to as sort of that WWE fan who just wants them to be, you know, good again? Well, I want to listen to something that is like a recap. Like, what are the things that I need to pay attention to? And then, you know, I think people are starting to do this with Raw and SmackDown too. You can kind of skip through stuff, right? Like, you don't have to watch something like AJ Styles and Matt Riddle. Watch that match. I mean, it's not the best version of the match that they could do, but it's still a really good wrestling match. You know, Bobby Lashley and Big E. yeah, the cage match was super tropey. They did all the things that you want, people climbing on the cage and then slamming the cage door. But then once they got rid of that stuff, just because they can't help themselves, they had a really good cage match. So, we're going to talk about those things and say, hey, this is what you should watch. Now, what might be in the top 5 also is this was so despicably done that we have to talk about it because it's just a big thing. But then, we don't have to talk about Eva Marie and Alexa Bliss's doll and, the things that are just like so skippable that you don't even want to waste words. So that's going to be the focus of the wrap that will be recorded on the weekend. The host of the cast of characters who will be on that show, I will be on it from time to time. Keela Cash will be on it. She of the Break It Down recap, WWE pay-per-view recap show. Paul Fontaine will be on it from time to time. But we're also going to mix in Scott Edwards. Scott Edwards does the 5-Star Joshi show. So to have, what a wide scope for Scott. Like he can passionately talk about Joshi, which I don't know if that's his favorite wrestling, but the way that he talks about it and writes about it, it sounds like it. And then he can also talk about WWE. And then we're going to bring in somebody who's kind of been on the radar a little bit. JD Oliva, who hosts and co-hosts a bunch of shows on this network. He brought in someone to our Fight Game Podcast Facebook group by the name of Scott Young. And when Scott came in, it was like, oh my gosh, who is this like WWE is my favorite wrestling of all time guy? And that's how I sort of watched him and sort of saw him through that lens. But as he's grown now, WWE is still his favorite wrestling. Like, but what I didn't see is he can contextualize and he can, give positive and negative. But really, what Scott is there for is because people are so disenfranchised with WWE, and I try not to be, though I'm sure it comes out sometimes where I might be a little bit unfair to them just because I'm kind of disappointed in what they do sometimes. Scott is the other side. Scott is, this was actually okay, or this wasn't bad. You guys are just beaten down because you've been watching for so long. So Scott's going to provide that voice. Now, to do a show on the weekend with everyone's schedules is going to be tough. Scott can probably only do it, half of the twice a month. Scott Edwards is I don't want to put his personal stuff out there, but he's got some projects going on, so he's gonna kind of come in when he's ready. But Keela Cash, she's gonna hold it down for most weeks, and then I will jump in, and then Paul Fontaine, who has like 27 shows on our network, he will also jump in. So there'll be a cast of characters, and we're going to be able to bring in some other people as well to hang out with us as we see fit. So could be somebody else from the network, could be somebody from the outside who just wants to talk WWE. So that's going to be in our $7.99 tier, our top tier, and I'll break down the tiers for the new folks who are listening to this in a second. The other thing I wanted to mention is we're going to do 2 giveaways. So we're going to give a giveaway for all of our current subscribers who joined previous to today, October 1st, 2021. So for all of you old school subscribers or people who maybe have joined us only within the last month or so, all of you folks are going to be put into your own giveaway. And what we're going to give away is Jon Moxley's new book, which drops November 2nd. So once we get to the end of November, we'll do the we'll do the giveaway. We'll have one winner. I will reach out to you directly. You can let me know. Do you want it in Kindle? Do you want it in hardcover? Do you not want it at all and you want to donate it? That's also completely 100% fine. And then the other giveaway is for the same prize, the new Jon Moxley book, but it's going to be for all the new subscribers who join in October. So starting today, if you are a new subscriber, You don't have to send me anything. I have the record of your subscription. The only caveat is you cannot, if you want to be involved in this giveaway, you cannot cancel. Basically, join to be in the giveaway and then cancel immediately, because you have to be a subscriber for the full month. Now, if you're like, I don't, this is not my gig, and you want to cancel, if you win the book and then you decide to cancel after that, like, so be it. That's your right, your choice. So giveaways for the Mox book for both new and old subscribers. Depending on how this works, I would love to do more stuff like this. And so we'll definitely gauge how things are going here, and possibly we may not do it every month, but we may do it in a timely way. We may do some other things for giveaways in the future, but just wanted to make that mention here. So for those of you who are already subscribed, this is where you can cut off the podcast. That was the update. Now, for those of you who have not subscribed, I just want to tell you everything that you get with our network. So we have two tiers. The $2.99 tier, and I haven't seen a podcast Patreon that was as low as $2.99. I've seen some $5 ones, but to get actual content, I haven't seen it as low as $2.99. So what do you get with your $2.99 per month subscription, which is, I don't know, I think the coffee that I buy 2 or 3 times a week is like $3 or $3.50. So less than my iced Americano, or I think that's what I get, iced Americano when I go to Starbucks. So what you get is the 1997 Raw recap. John LaRocca and myself, we've been starting from January. We've gone through every Raw and all of the pay-per-views from this year, 1997 year. And now we're through September. We're doing October. I mentioned the Bad Blood live feed thing. That'll also be as a podcast in the $2.99 tier. 1997 Raw recap. Also, you get the Dynamite show with Paul Fontaine and new co-host Jeff Hawkins. They break down Dynamite every night after Dynamite is over, and usually it goes up right as the West Coast showing ends. So we don't spoil anything for any West Coasters. I think at some point we were getting it up a little earlier than that, and so then I thought, let's just make sure we wait until that West Coast viewing ends. So every week, every Wednesday night, they recap Dynamite. We also have Brace for Impact, which I think, I don't want to make Mike Gilbert's head too big here, but I think this is our most popular podcast on the network. Patreon does not give you great analytics, so I can only see a few different pieces of information that would give me that thought. But Mike is great at Twitter. He's great at social. He does a lot of work to get pieces of this podcast also on our YouTube channel. And that just shows because, he's passionate about it. So people see his passion and go, hey, man, this thing is very interesting. It's very funny. Him and JD have a really fun back and forth. So it's a very loose show, but it is not irresponsible in any way. So don't worry about that. These guys just have fun. So Brace for Impact comes out just about every Friday morning, as long as Mike is not traveling for work. And the aforementioned Joshi Show, our 5-star Joshi Show, it used to be a Parker Klein and Scott Edwards production. Parker had to leave a lot of his duties when it came to content because he is teaching. He's doing some I think he's doing student teaching, and that takes up a lot of his time. So Scott has been doing it solo, and he's been bringing on a few guests here and there. On his last show, who did he have on his last show? I have the Twitter handle in front of me, but I want to get this person's name correct so that Trent from Wrestle In, and he also writes movie reviews at oneupculture.wordpress.com. So Trent joined Scott, and they had a really good conversation. And so if you're into Joshi, like, this is a really good podcast, because again, Scott is so dang passionate about this stuff. You can hear it in his voice. Check that show out if you love Joshi. John LaRocca, who is sort of the opposite of, what you would hear in a Joshi show, which is just a ton of passion and a ton of appreciation and talking about something that maybe is a little bit overlooked. John is kind of the other side. He's an old school wrestling guy, wrestling booker with a very logic based mentality, and he recaps shows that don't get a ton of focus. A lot of NXT UK, some ROH. I think he's going to talk about MLW show, the Fusion Alpha show this week. But John and I do the Fight Game podcast on F4W Wrestling Observer and the Raw Recap. This is kind of John going solo and just breaking down stuff from the mind of a booker. Now, does that mean that he's not going to like a lot of the crazy dives for no reason stuff that gets over with fans at AEW? 100%. He's just not going to like it, because sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But when it does make sense, and when it does fit the match and fit the right things, and there's timing and there's selling, then he's going to put it over because it's just good wrestling. So that's our weekend podcast, our weekend solo podcast with John LaRocca. And then my video podcast, Observe This. There's no time, it's more like when I can get the guests that I want. I'm going to have Jim Valley on very soon, so you'll be able to hear me and Jim Valley. The video podcast version goes up on our YouTube channel, but the audio one I drop in our $2.99 tier. Just recently talked to Kenny Herzog, who is he's done a lot of writing for a place like The Ringer, Rolling Stone, about wrestling, and he's also been on The Ringer's wrestling podcast with The Masked Man before. I don't think he has any current projects related to wrestling going on, but he did mention when I chatted with him that he's got some like a writing project about wrestling, but he just doesn't have any like current weekly things. So it's not like I can point you to listen to him weekly. But he looks at wrestling, more big picture, more culture kind of way. So I had him on Observe This. And also, the last thing I'll add here for our $2.99, usually if we do any sort of content through other mediums like YouTube, when it comes to recapping MMA shows or boxing matches, just like I did with Carlos Toro, where we talked about the Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk fight. We went to video to break it down, and then we put the audio on the $2.99 tier. So also live event recaps. We were just at All Out a month ago, and we did sort of live audio kind of roundtable-ish kind of things with folks who were there, and we put those on our $2.99 tier as well. So it's just like a ton of weekly content, and some content that may not be weekly but is regular for $2.99. And so what about the $7.99 tier? That is our top tier. All of the stuff in the $2.99 obviously is in the $7.99 tier. So what else? This new WWE podcast that we just talked about, The Wrap, is going to be in our $7.99 tier. In the Clinch with Paul Fontaine and Ryan Frederick, who also write for the Wrestling Observer. Ryan writes the Wrestling Observer UFC recaps weekly. He covers the entire card for Dave in the newsletter, and they talk every Tuesday morning. Or, sometimes I get that show out a little bit late just because of work-related stuff. But every Tuesday, you will hear our MMA show, our weekly MMA show. Ryan is in the know. Paul has some people telling him stuff, so there's usually little nuggets that come out of that show as well. And then we also have the Pound for Pound podcast, which is our boxing podcast. Carlos Toro and Robert Silva, They go back and forth to talk about. They're just such diehard boxing fans. Um, they watch everything, and then they have an opinion on everything. So check their stuff out, not only for the big fight stuff, like their thoughts on Joshua and Usyk, but also these weekly cards that, normally casual boxing fans don't even pay attention to. And if you don't get a chance to watch the weekly stuff necessarily, it's an easy catch up to catch up on the week with Robert and Carlos. The next show is High Tension with Justin Nipper and JD Oliva. They talk Japan. So if you are interested, there's not a lot of podcasts out there that focus on Japan in general, but Justin and JD are on top of that. All three of those last shows that I mentioned, In the Clinch, Pound for Pound, and High Tension, they were week one shows for us. Right when we started the Patreon, they were right there down from day one. So those are our day one podcasts. Another day one podcast, though it isn't weekly, it's our WWE recap show, Keela Cash and Andy Marshall, I should say, pay-per-view recap show. Every WWE pay-per-view, they jump on after the show is over to discuss that show. Usually once a month, they also do like a retro throwback show where they look at a pay-per-view that's kind of related to the upcoming one so that they can kind of reminisce about. So that's Break It Down with Keela and Andy. And then now other shows that may not be weekly but are regular, decently regular, Write That Down with Justin Nipper and Fumi Saito. Fumi is a legend. He is so knowledgeable. He's a historian. And somehow Justin has created a really good friendship with him. And they do, it's sometimes they can do like 2 or 3 shows a month, and sometimes it's only one. It's just based on Fumi's schedule. He's a busy guy. Justin's a busy guy too. And so, but it's just talk about like the opportunity to listen to stories that, aren't really out there that much. I'm sure these stories, I think they did a podcast on the Three Musketeers, the last one that they did, but it's just stuff that, Fumi is so knowledgeable and he's like there in a lot of these stories. So he's got like firsthand knowledge of what's going on. So that's a big one. Like the people who are fans of Japanese wrestling, especially Japanese wrestling history, they really, really dig that show. And it's just awesome that we have Fumi doing stuff with us. Also, this is more so me and Big Dave Meltzer. We do Q&As. So if you're part of the Fight Game podcast group, there's a thread that allows you to ask questions to Dave. And they don't have to only be about wrestling. They don't only have to be about MMA. Sometimes they're about things that he's doing, books, his college class. That was one of the questions of the last one, the college class that he teaches at Stanford for sports business. It's kind of a free. I don't think Dave is generally as just kind of comfortable outside of just talking about wrestling as he is with me when we do these shows. So it's really a laid back Dave. But then when he gets a question about, his story about, trying to find someone's house to watch WrestleMania 2 at, like it's just, you just get shocked by some of these stories, which are really funny. So that's generally been about every quarter, once a quarter, I'll get Dave on. So we just did our 4th one recently. So if you are in the $7.99 tier, you can listen to all of our past ones. You just got to kind of search through the Patreon a little bit. And also the archive of shows that we did with John Moxley are in there. John's schedule is a lot crazier now that we're not out of the pandemic, but that wrestling has kind of come back a little bit. He's also a brand new father. He didn't even watch the UFC show, the previous one, live because he was in Seattle for Defy. So he's kind of back on the road. I imagine we'll kind of do some stuff with him, but it'll probably be more off the cuff. Like it'll just be like, a random Tuesday night when he's got nothing going on, and he hits me up. He's like, hey, let's talk about this. And so, when we get the opportunity to talk to him, we will definitely take that opportunity. But he's got such a busy schedule. His book's coming out. I do want to get him on to talk about the book, though, both for the Fight Game podcast and for this feed here. So hopefully soon. I'm going to reach out to him in a little bit, because obviously, we're doing these giveaways, and I want him to kind of promote it a little bit. And so the last thing that's kind of in our $7.99 tier here that also is not a regular weekly show, which is the Karate Kid reviews that I do with Chris De Petrillo. We went through all 3 Karate Kid movies, broke those down. We went through all 3 seasons of Cobra Kai, broke those down. This is my bad, but we are going to do the next Karate Kid. And I've just been lagging on watching it. I've never seen it before, and I was almost anti doing this, but Wade Hagen was like, "No, you guys got to do it. You can't. This is not a complete thing unless you do it." So like, okay, I'll do it. I don't know. At some point, I'm sure we'll also review the Jaden Smith Karate Kid as well. But hopefully, we will wrap everything Karate Kid related up for this year. And then early next year, when Cobra Kai Season 4 drops, I think Chris and I will do at least 2 podcasts, maybe breaking down half of each season, the first 6 episodes and the last 6 episodes, fairly quickly from when the show goes up, because I know that Chris and his son Zach will probably watch all of them like the first 2 days, and I'll have to catch up to them. But yeah, so, and then, Chris and I are going to have to figure out what our next project is once we're done with Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, because we'll want to do something next year. We've talked about doing maybe a little bit outside of the combat sports genre. I know we want to recap and break down the 3 Bad Boys films. So it's not really fight game media related, but it's still kind of, a bonus kind of thing for people who do hang out with us. I know, post wrestling, like if you follow John Pollock and Wei Ting, like they do Marvel stuff and Star Wars stuff and TV show stuff. So it doesn't only have to fit in the genre. Anyways, I went a lot longer than I thought I was going to go here. But I just wanted to do the full pitch, and I just wanted to thank everybody who has subscribed with us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you're getting your value that you've spent, the money that you've spent. Hopefully you're getting the value out of it. And then for you new subscribers or new possible subscribers, give us a chance. That $2.99 one is very easy to just be like, okay, like it's only $3. Like, let me give this a shot. The $7.99 one is also very affordable. Like we cannot charge more than something like F4W, right? Because that's just the I don't know what you would call it, the top wrestling website when it comes to subscriptions. I know Sean Sapp has his Fightful Select, which is more about breaking news. And that's very affordable as well. I actually subscribe to that one. So hopefully this is this is something that people are interested in, and we're going to keep doing it. We've seen the hardest thing is to actually grow from month to month. Harder than you would think, but we're here and we're dedicated, and everybody on this network, I know they do it more so out of the love than out of the little stipend that I send them. But as we grow, maybe that stipend gets a little bit bigger, and we can give out stipends that are equal to the passion and the work that people put in. So that's what we're just hoping for. But we appreciate everybody who's along for the ride. That's it from here. You'll hear from me again in a few days on Sunday night as we talk about Bad Blood. So just go to our YouTube channel. You can set a reminder on that video, which is on the front page, and you'll get an email from YouTube when we do go live. So thank you very much. I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.